Turning to news around the world, a former Pope Benedict XVI's body lies in state in St. Peter's Basilica today as thousands of people pay their respects to the pontiff who shocked the world by retiring a decade ago. Benedict passed away on Saturday at the age of 95. His funeral will be held on Thursday in St. Peter's Square in Vatican City. And joining us now live via Zoom to discuss his legacy and impact on the Catholic Church is Becky King Cerling, Executive Director, Institute for Advanced Catholic Studies at USC. Good morning, Becky.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Now, this former pope, he'll always have this sort of asterisk next to his name in history for one of the few popes in history to resign. Can you remind us of why he resigned?
Sure. He said at the time that he thought he didn't have enough strength, either mentally or physically, to continue with his duties. And so, as you say, he was the first pope, certainly the first pope in modern times, but the first pope to resign for 600 years.
Wow. And what are some highlights? Give us two or three highlights of his tenure at the church.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I've learned just in the last couple of days is that he was environmentally conscious. He had solar panels installed on the roofs of the buildings in the Vatican, and his Pope Mobile was a hybrid electric Pope Mobile. But more than that, I think he will certainly be remembered for being the Pope to really take on the clergy sexual abuse problems head on once he understood the full impact and the horrors of that situation.
And speaking of which, he did confront some of those contentious issues, especially he was this driving force behind cracking down on sexually abusive priests. Now, in his final published letter, he thanked God and asked for forgiveness. Would you say there's any suggestion his request for forgiveness relates to the church's handling of sexual abuse accusations against priests?
You know, I'm sure it probably does. He prayed for the church. He was the head of the church. And so as the Pope, he became more than just himself. He took on both the accomplishments and the sins of the church. So I'm quite sure that was in his mind. Yeah.
And of course, Benedict's intellectual legacy can't be debated. Some may not know he was also this accomplished pianist with a love for Mozart. Can you talk about the influence of his writings?
Yeah, sure. And I should say also he liked cats. So he's a full person. He had gotten a reputation for being sort of this Rottweiler and an enforcer. But really, I think he's a much more complex, complete, whole person than, the news or media would have indicated in the lead up to his papacy. But his writings, I think, really will be an important, very important part of his legacy. So he's written in a very accessible way, communicating truths of the church in ways that lay people, undergraduates, even high school students probably could understand. His trilogy on Jesus of Nazareth is wonderful, as is his introduction to Christianity. So, yes, I think very much a part of his legacy. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your insight. Becky King Cerling, Executive Director of the Institute for Advanced Catholic Studies at USC. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.